So our sister battalion, 1508, they were out there, and I guess supply was a problem, and they were out in the middle of Bufu by themselves, and when they got a supply drop, they misdropped, and some of the supplies landed in the river, and two paratroopers ran in. One guy got trapped underneath a pallet, another guy was trying to save him. They were both in full kit, 50, 60 pounds of gear and equipment on them, and running into a river well, they both drowned. So they were worried that the Taliban were going to get to the bodies before we did, and possibly propaganda, things like that. They wanted us to go secure the river. And that was our mission. So it was about I don't know, we traveled all day on that Chinook and got to Urzgan. Well, not Urzgan, sorry. Got to Bagdish as the sun was going down. And I remember landing and getting into Fob Todd, I believe. And our platoon sergeant, Sergeant Darnell, God bless him, he's like, we're only going to be out there for a day or two. Weapons and water and ammo, obviously. And no snivel gear, period, none. Don't want to see it out there. We ended up being out there for 45 days. And when we got our packs loaded up, we put it on, and everyone was, I swear, my ruck was 100 pounds full of ammo. Everybody was heavy. And it was a 5-click movement out to the river that we were going to be. That was the hardest 5-click I ever moved in my life. There was no illume that night. It was muddy. It was hilly. It was just a very, very, very difficult movement. And it was the beginning of November. Essentially, it was such a difficult movement, you were sweating real bad. And then that night, it froze. And it was one of the more painful, miserable nights of my life. So, but we got there, and we got formed up a formation around the river where we thought we'd start just being there, be a presence for our security. That next morning, my squad leader, Sergeant Staples, spotted a guy with a camera videotaping us. So he went around and gathered up his guys, and he's like, we're going to go grab him. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we hopped in this little ravine to try to maintain some sort of security, and we weaseled our way up the ravine and hopped up on the other side of the road, and this guy had baited us into a 3-way ambush, and that was the start of the fight. So we started getting shot at from 3 different directions. Not immediately, but one direction, another direction. We very quickly learned that we were in a real bad situation. And there was like this open field, this huge open field, and then this little creek and a tree line, and we were kind of in the open field near the tree line. And it just wasn't a good spot. We very quickly realized we needed to regroup and get back to the river with the rest of the guys. And I remember when PL made that decision, we just ran in a straight line back to that ravine I was telling you about. And I remember bullets getting kicked up in front of me. I turned around to make sure the guy behind me was still there, and burst went right in between me and the guy behind me, and everybody was, somehow they didn't hit anybody. But we made it back to the river and started to duke it out over the next 3 days with them. Well, we ended up being there 45 or 46 days. Obviously, we didn't know that. The mission was just to be there until the bodies were found. Ended up 2 Navy divers came out, and they found the first guy right away. But the second guy found it on that 46th day, and then the mission was over. So we didn't know when the end was going to be. And we did not ever think it was going to be that long. So we just started... I don't really remember if we made sure we had 3 squares a day, but we had an MRE a day and drank the water we needed, and the firefight dictated what ammunition we went through. We tried to be sparse on that, but it is what it is type of deal. We didn't know at that time that the commander at Fob Todd was going to be such a dickhead when it came to getting supplies back to us. So we quickly realized why those One Fury guys ran in to retrieve that supply drop, because they knew it was going to be difficult to get. They weren't going to get help. We hadn't learned that lesson yet. Ended up, some of the Afghan, if I remember correctly, some of the Afghan National Army and some American soldiers loaded up some donkeys and brought us ammo and other provisions. It was absolutely insane. But actually, that side of the river was the Italians' AO, their area of operation, and they just weren't patrolling. And from what I understand, really no NATO force had been on that side of the river since a long time. And so the Talibans were kind of irritated, we'll say, when we showed up. There was a Taliban training camp on the other side of the mountain. There's a mountain right there in front of us, and apparently there's a pretty large sized training camp. Army intelligence said afterwards, we learned that the force they hit us with was 150 to 400 guys, is what they said. Now, Army intelligence, who knows? But they hit us with a pretty sizable force, and we had 29 guys in our platoon at that point. And just recently I was talking to our platoon sergeant, Sergeant Darnell, about this. And he's like, I don't know if you realize how lucky we were. We would have absolutely been slaughtered had we not had the air support we did. We had an unreal amount of C-130 gunships, had fast movers, Kiowas, Apaches, all the helicopters. Like, it was unreal. Our FO, George, did a fantastic job that day. He kept us all alive. We only took one casualty, is Jimmy Fowler. He got shot in the helmet. Bullet went in the helmet, grazed his ear, and then exited. So he got really, really lucky. Yeah. He's still got the helmet at home. You know how the PNN works, the private news network. There's always rumors floating around. Oh, I hear they found the guy. They're just trying to figure out how to get him out or something. So there's always a glimmer of hope. That was never true. I don't remember it really being irritating, but like we couldn't get supply from Fob Todd. They wouldn't, like we were nearly black on ammo, and food was a problem. I remember one day it was, okay, well now you're gonna get one MRE today. And not the next day, but it felt like the next day it was, well, you're sharing an MRA today with your buddy. And then one day we were just out of food. And Darnell, I don't know what he did, but he went out and he came back with some dead chickens and some rice from the locals. I'm assuming he purchased them, I don't know. But we ended up surviving. But there was a period where I remember going out, we'd send little patrols out to just do little reconnaissance, OPs, whatever. And we went to this little abandoned building, my squad did. And I guess we had been there before during the initial firefight, maybe something, I don't know. But there was a pile of MRE trash sitting in the middle of this abandoned building, and we started sifting through it. And one of the guys there, Stegage, he was a vegetarian, so we found some corn. Like, here, packet of corn. And my team leader, Bruce, he got a little MRE packet of cheese, and me and another guy ended up splitting a packet of barbecue sauce. That was our meal for the day. And it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Surprisingly, I remember being somewhat satisfied after eating half of that barbecue packet.
So do you remember just kind of the moment the mission was over and you guys were getting out of there? What was that like?
It was a good moment. And we didn't really hesitate. We got out of there pretty quick. But as heavy as we were coming in, because of all the ammo in the water, of course all that got expended. But at some point during that 45 days when we realized this is going to be more than that 6-hour initial mission, the ANP threw all of our gear in the back of their little Toyota pickup trucks and brought it out to us. And of course some other items that we deemed necessary, and we were even heavier going back. So that was a pretty difficult movement, but that was in the middle of the day, and the mission was over. Everybody's spirits were high.